You get it, right? It's divorce. Staying with you is just boring. I was too stunned to speak. I had suspected he might be cheating. But I've never imagined I'd be handed divorce papers like this.
Why?
I prefer younger women to an old lady like you. That's all there is to it. There was nothing left to say after that. All I could muster was a simple thank you for everything. Then, I hugged Kyle tightly. I had had a hunch about Raymond's affair. So, I was ready to discuss divorce. But that was a conversation meant for just the two of us. Not in front of our child. Bringing his mistress home was utterly unacceptable. I reached my breaking point. If that's how he wanted it, I was prepared to fight back hard. It's too late for regrets now. Cry all you want when you've lost everything. I glared at Raymond sternly. My name is Yasmin Davis. I currently work at a furniture store. I've always loved interior design, so I have no major complaints about my job. I was fortunate in my personal life, getting married to Raymond at 31 and blessed with a son, Kyle. So, my life should have been smooth sailing. But that's not really the case. Because I have a significant problem. And Raymond is the cause. He runs the company where I work, but his management skills are somewhat lacking. To make matters worse, it seems he's recently started an affair. I wanted a happy family, but now, maybe it's better to divorce. After 13 years of marriage, at the age of 44, I am at a crossroads in my life. Although I'm considering divorce now, I never thought about it when we first married. In fact, I thought meeting Raymond was destiny. We met at the bank where I started working right after high school graduation. It was the middle of a recession, and being able to get a job straight out of high school was fortunate. Anyway, I was grateful for the employment and dedicated myself to my daily work. It was a few years into my job. Raymond first visited the bank. I need to discuss something about a company account. Yes, certainly. I responded as usual. It was in a business-like manner, without any particular emotion. However, for some reason, Raymond appreciated my handling of his request. Thank you for your help, Raymond said to me and left. He's strangely suave. I thought to myself at that moment. But just a few days later, on a Sunday, I ran into him again at a store I had casually stopped by. Wait, you are from the bank? Oh, the other day. Raymond looked uneasy. Did I do something wrong? No, I'm just here on a completely personal matter. I'm looking for a table for my home. Oh, is that so? Raymond said with a smile. His expression softened. From then on, he became quite talkative, sharing various details about the store's products. Normally, such attentiveness might have seemed annoying. But not at that time. I suppose it was because we both shared a love of interiors. As we talked more, I found myself drawn to him. Eventually, I began visiting the store every weekend, and before I knew it, I was married to Raymond. After the wedding, I quit my job at the bank to become a homemaker. Raymond's store carried only high-end items. He seemed to be doing well, and I assumed the business was flourishing. That's what I thought. However, soon after, I discovered a shocking truth. It happened a few months into our marriage. Raymond had asked me to visit the store to help organize the warehouse. But as soon as I entered, I gasped.
What is all this?
It's just stock.
Stock? This much?
The warehouse was filled with mountains of expensive imported furniture.
This isn't right.
Alarmed, I quickly checked the store's ledger. As expected, the business management was a mess. He had recklessly purchased luxury items. And many of them remained unsold, plunging the store into complete deficit. Looking back through the ledger, I saw that the deficit started about 2 years ago. Around the time Raymond took over the store from his late grandfather. His grandfather had managed it before Raymond. Raymond lacked managerial skills. Realizing this, I hurried to restructure the management. First, I convinced him to give up on selling the luxury furniture. We also revived the custom-made product sales.
We're dealing with custom orders again? That just takes more time with the customers.
Raymond grumbled, clearly bothered.
It takes time, but it's easier to turn a profit than stocking up on unsold luxury items.
But
For now, let's go back to the method that was working well for everyone until we can resolve these deficits.
of course, there's no guarantee it will work. But we live in a small town in the countryside. Many people have lived here since the time of Raymond's grandfather, and his old customers are still around. If we can win back those old customers. I continued to support Raymond with all my heart.
I was managing the store my way.
Despite his constant complaints, we managed to get the store back on track. However, it's not like we started making huge profits. Just enough to get out of the red.
We need to make the next move.
If I left it all to Raymond, his lax management would quickly lead to bankruptcy. It would surely leave the employees destitute and jeopardize our own livelihood as well. After much thought, I decided to use my experience from my banking days.
From today, I'll handle the store's administration. Leave all the back-end work to me.
What am I supposed to do then?
You're the CEO. You handle the customers. You're good at sales, so go excel at it.
Raymond has a way with words. So focusing on sales could really bring in results. This strategy paid off beautifully. Raymond started securing contracts one after another. We also began leasing out the luxury furniture that was just sitting in the warehouse. Combined with Raymond's sales efforts, our performance skyrocketed. And the store regained its former glory.
This should stabilize our management.
I thought we were finally secure. But then Raymond dropped a bombshell.
Business has picked up, so I think we should hire more staff.
I agreed with that. But the next moment, I was taken aback.
I think we should make my mom help the management. Your mother?
What, you got a problem with that? Raymond twisted his mouth. I hesitated. The store had been getting more foot traffic lately, and there were more requests for leases and custom orders. I had always thought about increasing the number of salespeople or sales representatives. I had assumed Raymond thought the same. I gently offered an alternative.
Why don't we increase the number of sales representatives? But Mom wants to help out at the store.
Raymond's father had passed away a long time ago. In other words, my mother-in-law lives alone. Whether she was bored or dazzled by our improved performance, she was not the right fit for our company. I tried to persuade her to give up the idea. But then, my pregnancy was confirmed. Seizing the opportunity, my mother-in-law approached me.
It's tough to work while you're pregnant, right? Let me work in your place just for that time. Do you have any work experience?
I'll be fine.
I worked before I got married.
How many years ago was that? I couldn't bring myself to say it. So reluctantly, I replied,
I'll do my best.
But my mother-in-law didn't seem amused by that. She started telling relatives and neighbors.
My daughter-in-law is so greedy. She's muscled her way into my son's business. It's really shameless.
Sure, money is important, but all I wanted was to fix the company's deficit problem. I wasn't working just because I wanted money. When I countered that, my mother-in-law responded.
Huh? Are you criticizing Raymond? No, that's not what I mean. A wife should support her husband, not speak out of turn. Just stay quiet.
Being spoken to like that left me speechless. As time went on, my due date approached. Eventually, I had to leave my job for maternity leave. It was inevitable then that my mother-in-law would step into the company. Though I had a lot to say, I chose to hold back. Some time later, I gave birth to Kyle. After a few years of raising him, I returned to work. But it was already too late. The management of the store had worsened during my absence. Of course, I did everything I could before taking a break from work. So, the revenue itself wasn't bad. The problem is with the financial statements. Despite consistently good sales, the financial results were the worst. The reason for this was none other than Raymond and his mother. They were spending excessively on expenses. It wasn't exactly embezzlement, but it was definitely a gray area in how they used the funds. When I suggested tightening up, his mother immediately started complaining.
Such a cheek from a daughter-in-law. This is a business, not a family matter.
Oh, is that so?
Well then, let me say this, a staff member shouldn't talk back to the manager.
I closed my mouth at her words. I am technically a director. So I'm not just a staff member. Say something, will you? I looked at Raymond.
Why are you getting so worked up? Are you tired from childcare?
That's right, because you don't help. I meant it as a sharp retort. But that seemed to hit a nerve with Raymond. He snapped back angrily.
What's with that tone? If it's so hard, just quit your job.
What? If I quit now, the company would definitely go under. For Kyle's sake, I couldn't let that happen. When I remained silent, Raymond laughed triumphantly. Then, with a smirk, he said,
If you don't like it, just shut up and do as I say.
All right. To protect the company, I had no choice but to continue working. I decided to quietly follow Raymond's lead. While Kyle was progressing into elementary school, he became less of a handful, which allowed me to concentrate on my work. However, the company's financial situation didn't improve. Of course, it's because of Raymond and his mother-in-law's wasteful spending. I also started to worry about Raymond's lack of involvement with Kyle. He wouldn't show up for Kyle's sports day or school events. And sometimes he wouldn't come home at all.
I wonder if he's cheating. There are so many problems.
I thought, but confronting Raymond never revealed the truth.
You know about the redevelopment happening downtown, right? I'm just working hard to get a new spot in the upcoming building. Does that mean you can't come home?
It's not weird.
I'm just that busy.
He would always deflect like that. One day after work, as I returned home, Kyle mentioned,
I'd really like a soccer ball for my birthday next week.
Right, you joined the soccer club. I'll make sure to tell your dad.
Do you think Dad will come shopping with me?
Kyle asked uncertainty. I reflexively patted his head. Don't worry. I'll make sure he finds the time.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if his anxiety was completely gone, but that was all I could do. After that, I reminded Raymond about Kyle's birthday every chance I got, both at home and at work.
Got it, you're being persistent. You do nothing usually, so at least take the day off for his birthday. It's a must.
Yeah. A trace of worry remained. For now, all I could do was trust Raymond. With anxiety still inside, I faced the day of Kyle's birthday. I took the day off to cook a feast for Kyle when I suddenly noticed Raymond was about to leave. Are you seriously going to work? I asked, and he just said, there's a surprise.
What?
Maybe he really did consider Kyle. Relieved, I sent Raymond off. Soon, everything was ready to celebrate Kyle's birthday. Raymond returned.
I'm home.
Raymond's cheerful voice could be heard.
What kind of surprise is it going to be?
Eager and nervous, I waited as he entered the living room.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Here's the surprise. And there, beside him, stood a woman. She was wearing heavy makeup and holding a large shopping bag. I recognized her. Happy birthday, Kyle.
A present from your future mom.
The woman said, handing over the shopping bag to Kyle. Kyle seemed confused. I understood his feelings well. I too felt something was off with her words.
What do you mean by future mom, Natasha Johnson?
I addressed the woman in front of me, Natasha. She tilted her head in confusion.
Huh? It means just what it says.
Her feigned ignorance annoyed me. But then Raymond interrupted.
What's the problem? You still don't get it? What do you mean? Can you explain? That means Natasha is going to remarry me and become Kyle's mom.
With a slam, Raymond slapped the divorce papers on the table.
Then, he said, "You get it, right? It's divorce. Being with you is just boring." I was too astounded to speak. I had suspected he might be cheating. But I never imagined receiving divorce papers in this manner. "Why?" "I prefer a younger woman to an old lady like you. That's all there is to it." That left me speechless. All I could say was just one thing. "Thank you for everything," I said to Raymond. Then I hugged Kyle. I had a suspicion about Raymond's infidelity. So, I was willing to discuss divorce. But that was a conversation meant for just the two of us. Not in front of our child. Bringing his mistress home was absolutely unacceptable. I reached my breaking point. If he wanted to play it that way, I was ready to fight back. It's too late for regrets now. Cry all you want when you've lost everything. I gave Raymond a stern look. I also glanced at Natasha. Then Natasha smirked and spoke. "What's with that look?" "Scary." "Help me, Raymond." "Oh, are you okay?" "Sorry about the old lady I used to be married to." Raymond comforted Natasha with exaggerated gestures. That only infuriated me more. But right now, caring for the shocked Kyle was my top priority. "Kyle, are you okay?" "Yeah." "Let's go to Grandpa's house, okay?" For now, I took Kyle to my father's place. The discussions would follow. "I'll contact you once I've filed the divorce papers. We'll talk further, okay?" I stated this unilaterally and took Kyle to his room. While calming him, I packed some of his clothes into a bag. "I'm sorry, Kyle, that it's come to this." I was determined not to hand Kyle over to that woman, and to my surprise, Kyle said something unexpected. "I don't like Dad anyway." "But Mom, are you okay?" Kyle looked at me worriedly. It was clear that he was shocked. But not about our divorce. I later learned that what really shook him was hearing Natasha say she would become his mother. At that moment, all I could think about was getting Kyle out of there. So we quickly left the house with just the essentials. We headed straight to my parents' house. After explaining everything, they kindly took us in. I left Kyle with my parents and went to a lawyer's office. There, I signed the divorce papers. "Remember this, Raymond. You will pay for hurting Kyle." I then went straight to work. It was a holiday, but the shop was open. Because holidays are our busiest times. I greeted the staff and went into the office, where my mother-in-law was present. With several employees around, I handed her my resignation letter. "What's this?" "It's my resignation notice." As I spoke, the office buzzed with whispers. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law coolly retorted. "I saw Raymond leave with a young woman earlier. Did that lead to a divorce discussion by any chance?" "Yes, I've filed for divorce." "Oh, good. That means I won't have to deal with a nagging daughter-in-law anymore." She snorted disdainfully. Facing her, I said, "This means we're no longer related. Please make sure Raymond understands that." "That's fine. We won't be troubled by your absence." Her words irritated me. But I refrained from responding and headed for the door. Suddenly, I noticed the employees seemed shaken. As I wondered why, Raymond entered. "Mom, I'm getting divorced and remarried," he announced to his mother as he entered. That's when he noticed me. "What are you doing here, Yasmin?" "I just came to drop off my resignation." "Okay, this will clear things up." Raymond smirked. Natasha was also there. I glanced at Natasha briefly, then said to Raymond, "Well, the loan repayments will be tough, but I guess you'll all manage somehow." "Loan? What are you talking about?" Raymond looked puzzled. I sighed and responded, "The company's loan. Essentially, it's a debt. Make sure you pay it back." "Huh? Was there such a thing?" Raymond turned to look at an employee. He nodded slightly. "It exists. And you didn't know, even as the CEO? You were supposed to handle the administrative stuff, weren't you?" "That's right. I'll make sure to explain everything before I leave. I headed to my desk. I started up my computer and showed him a particular file. This is a list of the company's loans for operating capital, equipment expenses, and more. There's a lot. Raymond was shocked as he looked over the list. Then he raised his voice at me. What's with these amounts? Why did we take out so many loans? It couldn't be helped. You and your mother kept wasting money. Despite my warnings, the two of them never stopped squandering company funds. Realizing that this would put too much strain on our finances, I had temporarily taken out loans. I managed to slightly cut expenses without their notice and planned to repay the loans with profits. This was how I had been gradually improving our worst financial statements over several years. But all that ends today. From tomorrow, Raymond and his team will have to manage on their own. Moreover, now that I'm leaving, I have one more piece of bad news for them. About that loan, it's due for repayment this month. Huh? What do you mean? Why do we have to pay it all back at once? That's the agreement. Full repayment upon my departure. When seeking the loan, I consulted with the bank, but our financial statements were so poor. They said that while some loans were possible due to good sales, a large amount could not be approved. So, I thought about it. Whether to manage with a little loan or to set up a long-term repayment plan. Ultimately, I chose the latter. And I managed to secure the loan for the company through my own contacts. Meaning, they lent the money based on their trust in me. So, if I'm gone, that assurance vanishes. That's why I arranged for immediate repayment if I quit. What kind of solution is that? It was the only way since you didn't reduce the wasteful expenses. I looked back and forth between Raymond and his mother. Both averted their gazes. There's no grace period for the loan, so if they demand repayment, you'll have to pay it immediately. What are we going to do? We're pouring funds into the downtown redevelopment project right now. I don't know. If you want to avoid bankruptcy, you'll just have to pay it back. What the? Raymond collapsed. Glancing at his mother, she looked bewildered. Seeing their pathetic state was almost amusing, so I continued tauntingly. Well, pay it back before you get any external management interference. Interference in management? If you don't repay the loan, that might happen. Like changing the CEO, for instance. I gave a mock laugh. Then, Raymond started to tremble. I left them there and walked out of the office. Natasha was by the entrance, watching me the whole time. I returned her gaze with a smile. As we passed by each other, Natasha muttered. You wicked woman! That was you who was cheating, wasn't it? I thought that but didn't say it aloud. In any case, there was no turning back now. I hoped he would struggle financially. I thought that would happen, but it didn't. Apparently, Raymond had managed to secure funds from somewhere. The lender informed me that the full amount had been repaid. Well then, I'll just have to make my next move. I muttered, plotting my next act of revenge. A few days later, I went to Raymond's house to pick up some of my belongings. Even though I had belongings there, along with Kyle's, I couldn't just enter the house without permission since we were divorced. So, I had called ahead, expecting to be watched. But something was off. Because he was waiting outside at the entrance. Why are you waiting outside? I wanted to ask you something. Ask me what? As I asked back, Raymond continued with an annoyed look. Ever since you left, our clients have been decreasing rapidly. It seems our lease contracts have been cancelled one after another since I left the company. Moreover, the number of custom order clients has dropped, and contracts that were being negotiated have been scrapped. Oh, really? Maybe the problem is with you, not me. Needless to say, I knew why. But it irritated me to just tell him that for free. So, I made a sarcastic comment instead. That suddenly made Raymond angry. Don't play dumb. This is what you're doing, isn't it? On what basis are you saying that? Our employees said it. They said all our current clients are your acquaintances.
It turns out the employees understand the company's situation better than Raymond does. Indeed, many of our current clients are my acquaintances. But they are not just simple acquaintances. Many were introduced to me as clients by my uncle on my mother's side, who is in business. So, it's less that I secured the contracts with my connections, and more so through my uncles. Naturally, my relationship with them is superficial, so if I'm gone, it's almost as if they have no connection at all. Obviously, if the company were conducting good business, they would continue relations as clients. But Raymond not only lacks managerial skills but also mixes personal matters into business, like appointing his mother as an officer. It's no wonder there's uncertainty about the future of the company. That's likely why deals are falling apart. Too bad, isn't it?
Don't joke around. You must be saying unnecessary things, right?
I'm sorry, but I just left the company.
If contracts are being cancelled, maybe it's because of incompetence?
At my words, Raymond was at a loss for words. He looked at me with frustration, and I continued.
It's misguided to blame me. Everything that's happening is the result of seeds you sowed. That's not true.
It is true.
You are the business manager. You cheated. You are the one who discarded me.
Maybe now he realizes just how much he relied on me. However, understanding this now won't bring back what's been lost. I snorted dismissively, and Raymond, tears in his eyes, bit his lip. I slipped past him into the house. And I packed up my and Kyle's belongings. Just as I finished and called the movers, Raymond muttered.
Fine. I'll make a comeback with the downtown redevelopment. Don't come crying to me when I'm successful again.
With that, Raymond pushed me out of the house and slammed the door shut.
Idiot. As if I'd give you the chance to turn things around.
If I'm going to do it, I'll do it thoroughly. I will never forgive Raymond and his actions. They did enough to deserve it. I will push them as hard as I can. With these thoughts, I turned my back on Raymond's house. However, what Raymond plans to do next to save his company? Understanding his next moves is a big advantage for me. I should move accordingly.
Time to play my trump card.
I decided and made a phone call. A few weeks later, I was visiting a local company with my new boss. A lot has happened around me in these weeks. First, I had demanded child support from Raymond. Raymond grumbled but agreed to pay the amount I had demanded. On the other hand, Natasha initially disagreed with him to pay child support, but she changed her tune as soon as I mentioned going to court. Apparently, Natasha's father decided that going to court would be problematic. Upon further investigation, it turned out that her father owned a real estate business. He seemed concerned about being perceived as having issues related to the downtown redevelopment project. This redevelopment project is one of the larger public works. It represents a significant profit opportunity, which probably couldn't be ignored.
I'll get married to Raymond,
Natasha demanded of me. But that was irrelevant to me. Do whatever you want, I retorted, and Natasha smirked triumphantly. After resolving the divorce issues, I started anew with a new job. Today, I had my first task of visiting an office. However, I unexpectedly ran into someone there.
What? Why is Yasmin here?
Raymond? I bumped into Raymond at the reception of the company we were visiting. Natasha was also there beside him. I averted my gaze discreetly. But it was too late for subtleties once we had recognized each other. Raymond approached me aggressively and began.
What, still trying to interfere?
That's. Of course, I hadn't intended to interfere, but running into each other was unexpected. This could cause inconvenience to our visit. And to my boss as well. Confused about what to do next, Raymond started to complain.
Why would a woman like you be here anyway?
It's for work. I hesitated. But Raymond wouldn't even let that slide. Work?
This is the real estate company that will manage the new building in the upcoming downtown redevelopment.
I know that.
And it's a major player in the real estate industry. What would be the point of you coming to one of its branches?
Raymond laughed mockingly, with Natasha joining in beside him. Irritated, I shot back.
Isn't that the same for you? You're out of place here. Out of place? Our company is the biggest leasing company around here, you know?
The new building will house a hotel and commercial facilities. Naturally, they will need a lot of furniture. And Raymond's company is probably the only one that can supply them. Natasha boasted about this with confidence. That might have been true before. But just as I was pondering this, my boss interjected. Nice to meet you.
You're her ex-husband, right? I couldn't attend her wedding, so I hadn't greeted you yet. Who are you?
I'm Williams, her boss.
Well, I'm also her uncle.
At my uncle's introduction, Raymond's face changed color. Staring intently at my uncle, Raymond muttered.
Williams, as in the famous interior company.
Yes, we do interior work, including fixtures and furniture installation. In fact, my uncle's business involves interior work. This includes painting, plastering, and wallpapering, among other tasks. In addition to this, his company also handles furniture construction, which involves making built-in furniture. His company has furniture craftsmen on staff. Of course, having many acquaintances among general furniture craftsmen helps in selecting furniture that matches the interior design.
That's why my uncle's company also deals with domestic furniture. So, are our goals the same then?
Raymond hesitantly asked. I smiled slyly and nodded.
In a broad sense, yes. But we've also taken on interior construction. Wait a minute! William's company isn't around here.
I understood what Raymond was trying to say. Actually, my uncle's company isn't local. It's based right in the heart of a major city, not in the region we live in. That would normally make it unusual for them to take on this job. Raymond probably wanted to point that out. But there was a reason for it.
My dear niece was divorced, and she came to me wanting revenge on her ex.
My uncle explained, causing Raymond to turn pale. Continuing, my uncle added.
We were actually planning to open a branch here much earlier. But since my niece would be competing against her husband's company.
In other words, my uncle's company overlaps with Raymond's company in terms of business, albeit partially. They both deal with furniture. However, aside from that, they operate in completely different industries. However, I was worried about one aspect. My uncle's company is fairly well known. On the other hand, Raymond's company is only known locally. I thought that if my uncle opened a branch, it might take customers away from Raymond. So, I made a proposal to my uncle.
Instead of your company providing the furniture, let Raymond's company do it.
In essence, I managed to have my uncle's company recognized as a local firm with established connections. Thanks to the reputation of my uncle's company, securing initial contracts was straightforward. That's how I boosted Raymond's company's credibility and helped restore its performance. Later, I continued to hold off on my uncle's company's expansion. By doing so, I was protecting Raymond's company. But, after Raymond's infidelity and our divorce, I no longer saw any reason to protect his business. That's why I encouraged my uncle to expand here, and I got employed by his company. Of course, since our industries are different, it's unclear if it would affect Raymond's business. Yet, it might thwart Raymond's plan to make a big comeback with the downtown redevelopment. I thought the damage would be minor, but it turned out to be significant. Hearing the details from me, Raymond just crumbled right there. And then, he started crying on the spot.
It's all over now!
Embarrassed by the scene, I quickly left with my uncle. Soon after, Raymond's company went bankrupt. Apparently, he had been spreading money around, hoping to leverage the redevelopment project. And he had been secretly moving funds to unauthorized persons. All of it went to waste, and the inability to recover the funds led to the bankruptcy. Furthermore, it was revealed that he had been borrowing heavily to repay the company's loans, which turned out to be his personal debts. Raymond is now facing a significant amount of debt repayment. Interestingly, Raymond has started working as a construction worker on the redevelopment site to pay off his debts. His mother is working alongside him, and they plan to support each other in repaying their debts. However, Natasha, who remarried Raymond, claims she was deceived and is quarreling with him. She's already preparing for divorce mediation, so it seems Natasha isn't planning to support him. Natasha's situation is also precarious. In the end, it seems everyone has hit rock bottom. In contrast to the misfortune of Raymond and his family, I am leading a happy life. My job at my uncle's company is going well. Kyle seems to be becoming a better child. One day, as Kyle was preparing to go to school, I asked him curiously,
Kyle, aren't you shocked about your father?
"Why suddenly ask? Planning to remarry?" "That's not it. But if he's not shocked, that's fine with me. Because right now, Kyle is everything to me. For Kyle, I'll keep doing my best," I murmured as we left the house together. Being a good wife, not at all. Rather, she's more like a slave. My mother-in-law scoffed, her disdain evident as she vehemently denied any praise I received from her friends at the home party she hosted. Instead of acknowledging me as a good wife, she brazenly declared me a slave, then laughed vulgarly. Hosting weekend home parties with her friends was her hobby. While I didn't mind her doing so, the preparation was always my responsibility. Even if I had a high fever, taking a break was out of the question. On this particular day, despite feeling dizzy and unwell, I pushed myself through the preparations and serving duties from the previous day's setup to the actual event. Yet, instead of a single word of gratitude, she publicly labeled me as a slave. Though I had been treated like a servant before, her words cut deeper than ever before, nearly bringing tears to my eyes. It was then that something inside me snapped. A slave. But indeed, that's exactly what this life is like. Even when I confided in my husband, he always sided with my mother-in-law and never listened to my side of the story. Will I spend the rest of my life as a slave for in-laws? No, that's absolutely not an option. To break free from this situation, I pondered what I could do, and as a result, I decided to take action. It's time to play my cards. I devised a plan directed at my mother-in-law and husband. Those two who have oppressed me for so long. For revenge against these two of them, I decided to shed the mask of the obedient wife and enact my revenge. My mother-in-law still looks down on me, laughing. She was unaware of the downward spiral awaiting them. I'm Carol, 45 years old. My husband works for a company that requires him to transfer often, and currently, he's on a solo assignment. Not long after we got married, when it became clear that he would have to leave this town, which is our hometown, due to a job transfer, he told me that I would have to live with his mother. I was surprised by the sudden announcement, but by the time he told me, the decision for us to live together had already been made between him and his mother, and I was merely informed afterwards. It was a late marriage, and I figured such a situation would arise sooner or later, but it came much earlier and more abruptly than expected, and most importantly, my husband was away on his assignment. Living alone with my mother-in-law while my husband was away wasn't something I had anticipated. Both my mother-in-law and my husband hold traditional values strongly, believing that a wife should not earn more than her husband and must devote herself to her husband's family. Ever since we started dating, I naturally ended up doing more for my husband and taking more care of things. It was because I was 5 years older than him, and I didn't feel uncomfortable about it. However, when it came time to get married and I visited my husband's family to formally introduce myself, my mother-in-law quickly lectured me on what it means to be a wife. She spoke about how much she had devoted herself to her deceased husband and his family, leaving me utterly stunned. When I glanced at my husband for help, he coolly told me, "Make sure you listen to her." It was then that I first realized the difference in values between my husband and me. Nevertheless, the marriage discussions moved forward quickly, and feeling that it was my last chance due to my age, I couldn't bring myself to speak up. Though I had concerns about getting along with such a mother-in-law and the difference in values with my husband, I loved him and kept telling myself that we would manage, and so we went ahead and got married as planned. Before marriage, I was a career-driven woman, working at a major bank, and earned a higher salary than most of my peers. My hard work was recognized, and I held a significant position, which I found very fulfilling. Despite my favorable circumstances, I had no choice but to quit my job once we married. My mother-in-law would never allow me to work at a better company and earn more than her son. She pressured me to quit my job, concerned about appearances, saying, "If my daughter-in-law works there, people will think my son can't provide." My husband worked as a salesperson at a small to medium enterprise. Due to the difference in the size of our companies, there was indeed a difference in our salaries. However, I didn't care about that, and I argued that the world today doesn't follow the norms my mother-in-law insisted on. No matter what I said, she wouldn't listen. In desperation, I asked my husband to persuade her. Yet, all he did was sigh and say, "Just listen to what Mom says," without taking my side. I didn't want to quit, but with no support from my husband, I reluctantly had to leave my job. Afterward, I ended up taking a part-time caregiving job, as a dependent of my husband. It was also suggested by my mother-in-law.
Caregiving is something anyone can do, and it'll be useful when it's time for you to take care of me.
Even though I'm not familiar with the caregiving industry, I could imagine how challenging the job could be. Her casual remark made me feel somewhat dismissed, and more than anything, it irked me that she would say such a thing and expect me to work under those circumstances. However, the caregiving sector does have potential for growth, and it's possible to earn qualifications while working, so I thought it might not be too bad and started a part-time job at a nearby care facility. That was when my husband's solo assignment coincided with the news that I had to live with my mother-in-law. I had no say in the matter as a daughter-in-law and had to move out of our apartment to start living with her at her home. Household duties naturally fell to me as the daughter-in-law. For my early rising mother-in-law, I would wake up before 5 a.m. to prepare breakfast. She's picky about food and dislikes simple meals, so only toast was out of the question. Only freshly cooked dishes would do. Breakfast had to include soup and at least 2 side dishes, otherwise, she would scold me for being lazy. After that, it was a rush to finish cleaning and laundry, prepare lunch for her, then head to my part-time job, do the grocery shopping in the evening, and start preparing dinner once I got home. Dinner depended on her mood for the day, requiring me to be ready to cook either a fish or meat dish. While preparing dinner, I had to listen to her constant complaints about my cleaning not being up to par or the menu being too repetitive. After serving dinner and tea, she would start gossiping about the neighbors or nagging at me persistently. I couldn't just ignore her, so I listened to her complaints until she was satisfied and went to her bedroom. Only then could I start cleaning up after dinner. It was the same routine every day. My body was tired, and living under constant criticism from my mother-in-law was a significant stress. However, when she frequently said, "I did you a favor by taking an older woman who can't even have kids as a daughter-in-law," I was left speechless. Perhaps because I married late, my husband and I had trouble having children. When I suggested consulting a clinic, my husband dismissed it as troublesome, and my mother-in-law, having heard about it, worried about public perception if it became known that her daughter-in-law couldn't have children and didn't allow me to go to the clinic. Day after day, I endured their condescending attitudes, feeling indebted for them having taken me in at an older age and blaming myself for our inability to have children. Gradually, I lost any desire to stand up to my mother-in-law or husband. Moreover, he managed his salary himself and was supposed to transfer living expenses to me monthly, but he only put in $300, which was hardly enough. When I asked him for more, he just said, "Cut back and make do with what you earn from your part-time job," and refused to increase it. Although I worked 5 days a week at my part-time job, the workplace was short-staffed, and the work itself was demanding. Moreover, there was gossip and bullying among the supervisors and colleagues, so it was far from being a supportive work environment. Yet, since my husband wouldn't provide enough for our expenses, I couldn't quit and continued to work under immense stress. Together with my mother-in-law's pension and my part-time earnings, we could just about manage, but I had very little money to spend freely. With so little discretionary money, I used any spare time to read books and learn about investing, saving, and budgeting. However, every time she saw this, she would accuse me of getting involved in some shady scam. My mother-in-law is the type who spends money recklessly without considering the future as soon as she gets it. I once explained to her, in today's world, it's important for individuals to invest and save, but she dismissed it, saying, a woman should just do the housework, being greedy for money is embarrassing, and walked away without listening. Despite her comments, for me, a former bank employee, investing and saving were also ways to relieve stress, and slowly watching my savings account grow was a small pleasure in my difficult life living with her. I worked exhaustively at my stressful job on weekdays and took care of my mother-in-law at home, listening to her complaints until I was too tired to stay awake. Useless wife. You know, it would be better if you just cheated on him, paid alimony, and left. I'm sure my son could find someone better. Her complaints about me had become like a broken record. Just when I thought I could take it easy on the weekends after surviving such weekdays, it wasn't the case at all. My mother-in-law's hobby was hosting home parties, inviting 5 or 6 friends over every weekend. It's fine if she does it on her own, but of course, all the preparation for those parties falls on me. My mother-in-law insists on serving not store-bought snacks or meals, but properly elaborate homemade ones. So, I have to go shopping early in the morning for drinks and ingredients, and every time, I have to make cookies or cakes from scratch for the party. Even if I'm feeling sick, there's no way I can take a break. Once, when I wasn't feeling well, I asked if it would be okay to buy a cake from a bakery, but that was immediately rejected. It seems my mother-in-law has some sort of pride in entertaining with homemade items. I almost said, then do it yourself, but I couldn't bring myself to argue with my mother-in-law while feeling unwell, so I forced myself to make a cheesecake in the rice cooker. When my mother-in-law's friends gather, I'm just a mere servant, like a maid. One day at a party, one of my mother-in-law's friends said to me, I'm sorry for always intruding. Your daughter-in-law is really capable, praising me with concern. However, upon hearing that, my mother-in-law replied, oh no, she's completely useless as a daughter-in-law. Rather, she's more like a slave, and laughed vulgarly. A slave. But indeed, that's exactly what this life is like. Will I spend the rest of my life as a slave? Hearing her words, I felt despair. There's only one way to escape this situation. Because I had been living a life dominated by my mother-in-law and husband, I had convinced myself that I couldn't live alone. But on that day, for the first time, the idea of divorce crossed my mind. After a while, as I continued to write in my diary, I realized once again that divorce was the only option for me. And then, I thought about telling my husband about the current situation, where I was considering divorce, in order to get him involved. Because if my husband empathized with me and the situation changed, it would be the most peaceful resolution. However, I also realized that it was more likely that things wouldn't go so smoothly. If my husband could change so easily, we wouldn't be in this mess right now. In addition to my diary, I decided to carry a voice recorder with me so that I could submit evidence in case of divorce. After a while, my husband returned home from his assignment. My mother-in-law was clearly delighted to see her son again after a long time. I waited for a chance to be alone with my husband and then brought up the topic of my current painful feelings and the fact that I was considering divorce. Upon hearing the word divorce, I had hoped that my husband would be somewhat shaken and willing to listen. However, he responded with irritation, saying, it's your fault. I don't want to come back to a house where the relationship between my wife and mother is bad, and stormed off. He then proceeded to blame me, taking at face value the complaints about me that he had heard from his mother. It seemed that she had been gossiping to my husband, painting me as a useless wife who only thinks about shady money matters without doing any housework. I was angry at her for spreading lies, but I was also disappointed in my husband for believing them without question. I realized that I had been foolish to hope that he would trust me. He trusted his mother over me, the person he supposedly loved and married. As my husband unilaterally berated me in shock, he quickly left the room. There was no chance to have a calm conversation with him. Reluctantly, I went to the living room, where my husband had returned and my mother-in-law was enthusiastically preparing dinner. Since she never did any housework, she had no idea where anything was, and her clumsy movements caused things to spill and dishes to break, leaving the kitchen in a terrible mess.
Mother, should I help?
I offered, seeing the dire state of affairs, but that seemed to offend her. Don't patronize me, she snapped, seemingly incensed by my offer.
You're probably the reason we're in this mess with your sloppy cleaning.
Trying to shift the blame onto me.
Since I'm the only one who ever cooks, isn't it only natural that I organize things where it's convenient for me? Please don't blame me for your mistakes.
Having just found out moments ago that she had been lying to my husband, I would usually have backed down silently, but this time, I found myself responding to her with a strong tone. I never expected to retort back at her, and my mother-in-law, taken aback by my unexpected response, looked at me in surprise. However, her expression quickly turned red with anger, and she exploded, pushing me forcefully. As I stumbled backward, she had left a pot of boiling hot stew for dinner. The pot toppled over from the stove, and its scalding contents splattered onto my arm. I screamed in agony at the intense heat. Upon hearing my cry, my husband also came to the kitchen. Despite the situation of the pot toppling over and me writhing in pain nearby, my husband's first concern was for his mother's injury. After confirming her safety, he then angrily yelled at me, saying, "All the effort Mom made for dinner has gone to waste because of you. Isn't it clear that I'm the one who should be worried in this situation?" In shock and pain, unable to find words, she chimed in, "She really is useless, isn't she? Absolutely worthless," joining my husband in berating me. Under the barrage of insults from both of them, emotions I had suppressed until then burst forth as tears.
I can't take it anymore.
With that thought in mind, I stood up, shielding my injured arm, rushed out to the living room, grabbed my bag, and fled from my in-laws' house. After walking a bit, I hailed a taxi and went to the emergency room, where I received first aid for my arm. Sitting on a bench in the dimly lit hospital lobby after the treatment, I reflected on everything that had happened. I had married my husband out of love and become part of his family, but they both only saw me as a convenient slave. Witnessing their lack of concern for my injury and their joint berating of me, I couldn't help but realize it. I guess deep down, I had always sort of known, but I guess I was trying not to think about it. My time, my money, my entire life had been exploited by my husband and mother-in-law. Anger surged within me once again as I pondered this realization. Even after this burn on my arm heals completely, it seems like there will be scars left. In that case, I want to use even this burn to punish the two of them. I made up my mind to seek revenge against them. That night, I stayed at a nearby business hotel. I had packed my bag when I left home, including essentials like my wallet and ID, so I didn't have any trouble. The next morning, after receiving treatment at the hospital again, I mustered up the courage to return to my in-laws' house, where my husband and mother-in-law were. They were waiting for me at home, and I was severely berated for leaving the house without permission the previous night. I expected them to be furious. No matter what they said, I didn't resist and appeared to be reflecting obediently. 2 weeks passed since then. I obediently took care of my mother-in-law as before, listened to her orders obediently, and acted as a submissive wife. I allowed my mother-in-law to continue her usual snide remarks, insults, and verbal abuse. My husband returned to his assignment as soon as I got home, but he must have been relieved to hear from my mother-in-law that I was behaving obediently again. However, I secretly took action, pretending to go to work or the hospital while actually going to free legal consultations. Then, on a weekend morning 2 weeks later, still dimly lit in the early hours, I left my in-laws' house with a suitcase packed with my belongings that I had been gradually gathering, abandoning all household chores such as preparing breakfast and my mother-in-law's home party. She would probably be surprised to wake up and find me gone from the house. When I arrived at the business hotel I had chosen as a temporary refuge, I found numerous missed calls from her. She must have contacted my husband as well, as I received several emails from him, some of which, when I checked the contents, were provocative messages like, there are plenty of younger and more useful wives than you. If you can divorce, go ahead and try." As I was checking his emails, another call came in from my mother-in-law, so I decided to answer the phone. On the other end of the line, she was screaming hysterically about how I had ruined her home party and abandoned my household duties. "This useless wife! Instead of slacking off, just get out of here." To her words, I replied firmly, "Don't worry. I'm already at my new place, and I won't be coming back there." She seemed surprised by my response and let out a flustered voice. She probably never expected me, who had been obedient for so long, to actually leave now. Since making this plan, I had been obediently pretending on the surface while quietly preparing step by step. I kept recording all the verbal abuse and violence at home in my diary, carried a voice recorder with me, and made sure to record audio evidence as well. And the burn on my arm caused by her violence, I got a diagnosis from the clinic and had a medical certificate made. Although I had little money to spare, thanks to saving diligently and investing, I managed to accumulate enough money to live in a business hotel for a while. To my mother-in-law, who was left speechless with surprise, I conveyed my intention to divorce my husband and informed her that I would communicate through a lawyer, then unilaterally hung up the phone. After that, I was able to find a new place to live safely. It was a small apartment, but it was a comfortable room to live in alone. The divorce went smoothly, although my husband and mother-in-law were reluctant to pay alimony. The evidence I had prepared, such as the diary, voice recorder, and the diagnosis of my burn, proved to be strong evidence, and the alimony claim was accepted. It took several months, but the divorce was finalized without any major issues. I was filled with joy at finally being free, after having all my time and money exploited. I felt incredibly liberated at the thought of living without being controlled by anyone. On the other hand, my ex-husband quickly remarried a younger woman after our divorce. I had suspected this might happen, as he had been cheating on me throughout our marriage while away on business trips. The place where my ex-husband worked away from home and my in-laws' house were not that far apart. It wasn't financially or time-wise difficult for him to come back on weekends. Despite that, he rarely came home, and I realized he was cheating when I overheard him talking to someone who sounded like his mistress on the phone during a previous visit. I could have pursued this matter during the divorce proceedings, but I was more eager to be freed from him and mother-in-law quickly, so I chose not to mention it, fearing my husband might object to the divorce if I did. If I could be free, it didn't matter to me whether he cheated or remarried afterwards. When I had settled into my new home and was living alone, I received a phone call from my ex-husband. I was wary of what it could be about, but I couldn't ignore it, thinking it might be something important, so reluctantly, I answered the phone. To my surprise, he sounded quite worn out on the other end of the line. I asked what was wrong, and he told me that his new wife had been using up his savings. His new wife was 15 years younger than him and had a strong personality. It seems like she flatly refused to be taught the mindset of being a wife by my ex-husband and his mother, just as I had been when I first came into the family. Furthermore, she freely squandered his income and savings, neglected household chores, and instead of me, it was now them who were being manipulated and exhausted by her. No matter what they said to her, she adopted a condescending attitude, saying, "I became an old divorced man's wife, so it's only natural." Realizing the situation they were in, he expressed his gratitude for the way I had managed to make ends meet with little money, without complaining, and taking care of household chores and his mother. He pleaded with me, saying, "Let's just forget about that happened before. Please withdraw the alimony and come back." Upon hearing his words, I let out a sigh from the bottom of my heart. His new wife seems to be quite a spendthrift and has some peculiar habits, but I doubt there's anyone in this day and age who would willingly become the ideal wife my ex-husband and his mother envision. Still unaware of such things, it's astonishing that they can say, "Let's just forget about it," regarding the pain I endured. And when I heard the line about being an old divorced man's wife, I couldn't help but laugh. That's just the same as me being constantly told, "I married an older wife," isn't it? It was ironic that my ex-husband is now being told the same thing as he used to say to me, and I can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. I responded to his plea to come back with a firm there's no obligation for me to do so and hung up, blocking his calls. As for what happened afterward, my ex-husband's mother, who used to treat me like a slave when I was there, ended up being treated like one by his new wife, and she couldn't even hold the beloved home parties anymore. Not only that, rumors spread in the neighborhood that she bullied me into divorce, and it seems like she's grown distant from her friends. She, deprived of her joys, aged rapidly and eventually developed dementia. She was placed in a nursing home by her son's new wife and ended up living apart from her beloved son. While my ex-husband continued his solo assignments, his new wife seemed to be frolicking around with another man during that time. His savings were rapidly dwindling, and he was under pressure to pay me alimony, so his life suddenly became difficult, and he even started working part-time at night. Thinking that maybe his new wife would change if they had a child, he visited a fertility clinic. What he found out there was that the problem lay with him. My ex-husband, who never imagined that he could be the problem, fell into depression and lost his confidence. I wanted to complain about him calling me an infertile wife without any basis, but it seems he has had enough suffering, and his mother is already in a state where she can't hold a conversation. As for me, I utilized the investment and saving knowledge I learned during my marriage to obtain qualifications. I quit my part-time job in caregiving, used those qualifications and my previous work experience to apply for jobs, and to my surprise, my former boss reached out to me and offered me a job at the company I used to work for. And I was hired as a full-time employee once again. Being able to return to the beloved job I thought I could never go back to filled me with surprise and joy, and I'm looking forward to the future with excitement. Though my marriage life was tough and painful, by taking courage and action, I have now found happiness. Having been exploited by my ex-husband and mother-in-law, I'll live for myself from now on. That's the resolution I've made anew. Daddy said that what happened that night must remain a secret, and that I mustn't tell anyone, but I. Nellie started to cry as she recalled the painful memory while talking. What do you mean? What happened? Actually, Dad was in my room. And then, Nellie revealed a truth that shocked me. I can't believe my husband would do such a thing. My husband still claims he sleeps in our daughter's room just to get some communication. To verify the testimony that my daughter bravely shared, I carefully removed my husband's pants late at night while making sure he didn't wake up. It's just as Nellie said. Then an unbelievable truth was discovered. My name is Ruby. My husband, Mike, was part of a strong school basketball team during his student days and once aspired to be a professional. Although he never realized his dream of becoming a professional, he still continues to play basketball as a hobby. Mike can be somewhat self-centered, often prioritizing his own interests over the family. We have one daughter, Nellie, and even as I struggled with my first experience of parenting, Mike would nonchalantly go out to play basketball as if parenting had nothing to do with him. Hey, you became a father, you know? Don't just prioritize your hobbies. Don't you think about doing some parenting? Huh? Childcare is your responsibility, isn't it? What's the point of being a stay-at-home mom? I'm working and stressed all week, let me have my freedom on the weekends. Indeed, I am a stay-at-home mom, but it was Mike who initially wanted me to quit my job and focus on the home. Yet, he has the nerve to berate me for not working and talking back to him, which is just cruel. However, even when I objected, Mike wouldn't change his mind, and instead, his outings only increased. Reluctantly, as Nellie grew old enough to go out, I began to attend Mike's basketball games with her. It's nice to see a wife and kid coming to watch the games, seems like a happy family. Oh, well, yeah. Perhaps not entirely displeased by his friends' comments, Mike was in a good mood when we showed up. Although he remained self-centered at home, deep down, despite some dissatisfaction with Mike, I put up with it thinking if it helped our family get along better. Thanks to this, our family maintained a seemingly peaceful day-to-day existence on the surface. Daddy, Daddy. One holiday, unusually at home, Mike was approached by Nellie, who had just started walking. Unsteadily, she accidentally stepped on Mike's foot. Though it was just the weight of a 1-year-old. Yet, Mike exploded in rage over his foot being stepped on.
Are you kidding me? What if you injured my foot?
Startled by being yelled at by her father, and not understanding why, Nellie began to cry in confusion. Hey! Don't yell like that just because a child stepped on your foot.
Damn, it's your fault for not watching her properly, letting her walk around aimlessly like that. When I'm here, keep her confined somewhere.
I understand that his feet are precious because of his basketball, but his reaction was excessive. But there's no way he could get injured just because a child stepped on his foot. Appalled by his utterly self-centered claim, I ignored Mike. As I picked up the sobbing Nellie and comforted her, saying it was going to be okay, Mike seemed displeased and left the house muttering complaints. To him, family comes second, and he always puts himself first. This selfish side of Mike, which had been hidden when we were dating, made me wonder if it was really okay to continue this marriage. But I couldn't deprive young Nellie of her father. I decided that I just had to endure it and tried not to anger Mike as much as possible. Then 10 years passed. Nellie was now in the upper grades of elementary school and growing up to be more ladylike every day. She started to develop her own little quirks, even sharing stories about boys she liked, showing her delightful progress. As for her relationship with her father, Mike, it was neither good nor bad. Mike continued to do as he pleased, spending his weekends on his hobbies, rarely being home. You guys being there makes it hard for me to focus on my play. You don't need to come watch the games anymore. While Nellie and I used to frequently watch his games when she was younger, recently, Mike had told us not to bother coming, and that stopped as well. I didn't particularly have an interest in basketball. My visits were more about appeasing Mike, so when he said no more visits, I quietly stopped going. This change meant Nellie and I could spend our weekends leisurely together, which honestly suited me better. However, around this time, our family began to receive malicious pranks from someone. Just this morning, when I went to pick up the newspaper, I found a plastic bag stuffed inside the mailbox. Again, who could it be? The contents, emitting a foul odor, were nothing but rotting garbage. Every few days, someone would put rotten garbage in our mailbox or attach slanderous letters at our entrance, which I had no memory of. Feeling the danger, I discussed it with Mike, but he laughed it off, saying, "It's just a prank, don't worry about it." He acted as if it was none of his business, because he was rarely home, which irritated me. I argued back, what if something happens to Nellie?
It's definitely beyond just a prank. What if something happens to Nellie because we ignored this? I'm calling the police.
No, don't do that. It's surely just temporary. If you call the police. When I mentioned calling the police, Mike visibly panicked. Why? I think it's better to consult them early and catch the perpetrator.
No, be more careful. If we call the police, it might provoke the perpetrator and make things escalate. We should wait and see a bit longer.
It didn't sit right with me, but Mike was so adamantly opposed to calling the police that I reluctantly agreed to wait a little longer. One day, after some time had passed, Mike suddenly said, a basketball scrimmage got scheduled in the neighboring county at the last minute. That's rather sudden. When will you be back? Probably the day after tomorrow. I guess. Mike's vague response about the sudden game made me suspicious. Pressing him would likely lead to being sidestepped or shouted at. So I kept silent and let him go, but Mike didn't return home until 3 days later. You didn't contact me, and you returned later than you said. What happened? I was worried. There were some troubles, and it delayed my return. My phone died, and I couldn't contact you. It couldn't be helped. Couldn't one of your teammates have had a charger? Couldn't you have borrowed it? No matter how much I questioned Mike about what he was doing, he kept making excuses and eventually ended the conversation irritably. Was he really at a basketball game? His dubious behavior only deepened my suspicions. That night, after he had returned, Mike suddenly said something inexplicable. I've been away for a while, so you must have been lonely. I'm going to sleep in Nellie's room from tonight. In Nellie's room? What's gotten into you all of a sudden? I've been dumping all the childcare on you, right? I know it's late, but I've been reflecting. I need to cherish my time with our daughter more. That's what I've been thinking. I was perplexed by his sudden change of heart, but Nellie seemed happy that her father would be sleeping in her room. It's my first time sleeping with Dad. I'm okay with it. Hey, Mom, it's okay, right? Although Nellie hadn't often expressed feeling lonely despite her father's frequent absences, she probably really missed him. Though I was still confused, seeing Nellie's reaction, I agreed to let Mike sleep in her bedroom. Previously, he would get upset just by Nellie touching his leg. What a change of heart, I wondered. Mike's strange behavior had another aspect. Previously, he would wear shorts around the house, but from that day, he started wearing long pants. It was strange because Mike usually prefers light clothing due to his dislike of heat. One day, when Mike was taking a bath, I went to the laundry area to wash clothes, and as he was about to leave the bath, he noticed me and quickly closed the bathroom door. "Why are you here? Get out of here quickly!" Mike told me to leave the laundry area in a flustered manner. His attitude was clearly different from before. "What's the matter? It's not like you're embarrassed to be seen now, right? Weirdo." He seemed to be hiding something, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Since then, it became routine for Mike to sleep in Nellie's room instead of our bedroom. As Nellie didn't seem to mind, I let Mike do as he wished. However, I would come to deeply regret this decision later. A week after Mike started sleeping in Nellie's room, I received a call from Nellie's school. The call was from Nellie's teacher, who urgently requested that I come to the school as there was something important to discuss. Could something have happened at school? No, it couldn't be. It's not like Nellie to cause problems. Worried about what I might hear, I headed to the school, where the teacher asked me something unexpected. "Nellie seems a bit down lately. Is there something going on at home?" "Excuse me?" The teacher asked with a serious expression, but I had no idea what could be the cause. "She seems cheerful around me, but maybe she's hiding some concerns." I assured her teacher that I would keep an eye on her and left the school. Once home, I approached Nellie, who was watching TV in the living room. "Nellie? Your teacher mentioned that you've seemed down lately. Is there something bothering you? Can you talk to Mom about it?" I made sure to ask her gently, not wanting to sound accusatory. Initially, Nellie was silent, but then her expression shifted as if she had made up her mind. "Dad said that what happened that night should be kept a secret, and that I mustn't tell anyone. But I..." As she spoke, something seemed to recall a painful memory, and she began to cry softly. "What do you mean? What happened?" "Actually, Dad was in my room." And with that truth Nellie shared, I was struck by a profound shock. I decided to verify something to corroborate what Nellie had said. Mike still insists he sleeps in Nellie's room for communication with his daughter. Late one night, after confirming Mike was deeply asleep, I carefully removed his pants without waking him. What a thing! Just as Nellie said. For proof, I photographed Mike in his underwear with my phone. Turning on the bedroom light for the photo soon woke him up. "What's with the light?" "Hey, what are you doing?" "What am I doing? That should be my line. What is this supposed to mean? Explain it to me." Pointing at Mike's legs, I exclaimed. There were multiple painful-looking cuts from his shins up to his thighs. His sudden shift to wearing long pants, his adamant avoidance of being seen naked, was presumably to hide these wounds. "What are these cuts? What are you hiding?" "This is, I got hurt during a practice match." "Cuts from a match? They clearly look like they were made with a blade." Mike stubbornly maintained that the wounds were from a match. He said he had decided to sleep in Nellie's room until the wounds were less noticeable because he didn't want me to worry if I saw his injuries. And it seems he was changing his bandages while Nellie was supposed to be asleep but was accidentally seen by her, who was not yet asleep. Mike had told Nellie not to tell me because he thought he was attacked and hurt by someone, which had caused her to lose her spirit. Nellie is still in elementary school. The shock of suddenly seeing such raw, unexplained wounds on her father's legs must have been immense. Especially since she was told to keep quiet about it. Nellie, being a conscientious girl, probably struggled greatly with whether she should confide in me. Don't make a big deal out of it. That's why I kept it quiet. This will heal quickly. That kind of response. Don't you realize how shocked Nellie is because of the strange way you're hiding this? Don't you care about that? That's the mother's job to deal with. Fine, I'm tired. Let me sleep already. Mike made a sulky face at my words, put on his pants, went back to bed, pulled the covers over himself, and fell asleep. Mike keeps making excuses, but something is definitely off. He must still be hiding something. Though the discussion ended, I was far from convinced by my husband's strained excuses, so I decided to secretly meet with Mike's teammate to hear the real story. What I discovered was unbelievable. According to the teammate, they hadn't had a practice match in the neighboring county recently, and moreover, Mike had been increasingly skipping basketball practices for a year. My husband, who had been frequently saying he was going out for matches. It turned out that it was all a lie. What does this mean? Where has Mike been going then? The mystery only deepened. Confronting him would likely not lead to a confession. However, I couldn't just let Mike go unchecked, so I decided to hire a private investigator to look into his affairs. The investigation revealed that for the past year, Mike had been having an affair. Mike lied about going to basketball practices and was frequently meeting secretly with Tally. Of course, you were hiding things from me. I confronted him with the investigative report and photos from the detective, showing Mike walking arm in arm with Tally, his affair partner, through the streets. What? How did you get this? Your strange behavior even affected Nellie. That's why I hired a detective. I can't believe you were having an affair. Shocked by the irrefutable evidence of his affair, Mike eventually admitted to his relationship with Tally. According to Mike, Tally was also the one repeatedly harassing our home. On the day he lied about having a practice match in the neighboring county, he was actually at a hotel with Tally. He confessed that during their last encounter, Tally attacked him multiple times with a survival knife, threatening, "If you don't leave your wife, I'll make sure you can't play in the matches." Those numerous cuts were apparently her retaliation for his unwillingness to divorce me. I'm a victim too. I never thought she would do something like this. It was just supposed to be a fling, but she got serious. Mike said this begrudgingly. But ultimately, it was Mike's fault for starting an affair with a single woman despite having a family. Yet, he didn't seem to think he was at fault at all. Tally, who had attacked Mike, had since fled. Given that the weapon was a survival knife, it could have been life-threatening. Luckily, the injuries weren't severe, but if I found out about the wounds, it would reveal his affair. Thinking this, Mike was forced to stay in a hotel until his injuries healed to some extent. Even after returning home, to avoid me seeing his legs, he decided to sleep in Nellie's room. He intended to keep his wounds a secret from Nellie too, but she accidentally saw them, and he reluctantly told her to keep quiet about it. But that had hurt my daughter's heart. If everything's out in the open now, it can't be helped. I've broken up with Tally, so don't worry about it anymore. I'll be coming home properly from now on. Mike said this trying to appease me, but I could never forgive him. Fearful of his affair being exposed, Mike hadn't reported Tally's actions to the police. That meant Tally was still at large, potentially planning to strike at Mike again. Perhaps next time, she might direct her vengeance towards me or Nellie. With that thought, I could no longer stay in this house. The next day, while Mike was at work, I packed my bags, left only the filled-out divorce papers behind, and left the house to pick up Nellie from school. I've been so scared ever since I saw the cuts on Dad's legs, wondering if someone was going to attack our family. I'm sorry, Nellie, for making you feel scared. From now on, I will definitely protect you. I squeezed Nellie's hand, which she uttered anxiously. Mike can't be relied upon. It's up to me to protect her. We explained our situation and decided to stay with my sister's family for a while. Later, when Mike, unaware of anything, returned home, Tally was waiting for him with a survival knife.
How long will you make me wait? Divorce your wife now. Wait, just wait.
Startled by Tally's frantic demeanor, Mike dashed out of the house screaming for help. Luckily, it was a busy time with many pedestrians around. Seeing Tally chasing Mike with a survival knife and screaming, someone quickly called the police, and Tally was arrested on the spot. When I learned about this on the news, I felt relieved, yet I shuddered at the thought that if we had delayed our escape, we too might have been harmed. But now that she's been caught, maybe it's time to lighten up and come back home. Mike began sending such messages daily. In his mind, everything was over, but I couldn't imagine getting back with a man who had betrayed his family and put us in danger. When I made it clear that there was no chance of rebuilding our relationship and that we could not continue as a couple, Mike threw a tantrum. Infidelity is something any man does. I'm not getting a divorce. I'm not in the wrong. I've torn up the divorce papers, so come back. Refusing to admit his faults, and persisting in not wanting a divorce, the negotiations dragged on and escalated to a lawsuit. However, the evidence of infidelity I had gathered secretly through a detective paid off, and the court fully recognized my claims. The divorce was finally granted, and Mike was ordered to pay me a substantial amount in alimony and child support. Until the end, Mike kept asking me and Amy to come back, but of course Amy had long since lost any affection for her father. I don't want to live with someone who made Mom suffer. You never really cared about us, did you? Such ingratitude. Have you forgotten all I've done for you, you ungrateful child? Whether hurt by Amy's words, Mike cursed his fate as a parent.
I don't even remember being raised by you. I never want to see you again.
Whether it was those final words that did it, realizing his daughter despised him, Mike slumped down, defeated. Later, the news reported that Tally, arrested for assault, showed no remorse. After serving her sentence, Tally said with a smile, "I want to meet Mike again. This time, we'll live happily together." Mike must have been horrified. Fearing Tally's release, Mike fled the town and his whereabouts since are unknown. We, too, moved far away with the help of my parents to ensure we never accidentally encounter Tally. Though it was unsettling to relocate, my daughter's safety and happiness were paramount. Accepting the uncertainties and difficulties was a small price for my child's well-being. Having moved, we started anew, turning over a new leaf in life. Amy, initially nervous due to the divorce and move, eventually adjusted to her new elementary school and made many friends, showing us her bright smile again. Having caused her so much pain, I now want to fill her life with joy. Though now a single mother, the competent lawyer ensured I received enough alimony from Mike to not face immediate financial troubles. I started a new job where we moved, making sure I was always home on time to spend quality time with Amy, ensuring she never felt lonely. Watching Amy happily munch on the dinner I prepared after returning from school and hearing about her fun day, I realized these simple, peaceful days are what truly matter. A quiet Saturday morning. My husband, who usually goes out, told me he has a young lover. I'm serious. I want to make her happy.
So sign the divorce papers under these terms. What do you mean by that?
I am Molly, 53 years old. I met my husband, David, at a social group when I was 28, and we married and built a happy family with our son Tim and daughter Anna. I've been a homemaker supporting our family, and David runs a small local business. This year marks 25 years of marriage. Our children have grown up and become independent. But recently, David's behavior started to change. One morning, "Molly, I have sudden work today. I might come home late," he said over breakfast. I smiled, handed him his coffee, and said, "Take care," as he hurriedly left the house. David often went out even on weekends. At first, I trusted him without doubt. But gradually, as his excuses repeated, doubts began to sprout. One weekend, when we were supposed to spend time as a family, David again said, "I have plans with a friend today."
Again?
David couldn't hide his flustered expression and said, "Yeah, it's scheduled a long time ago." I watched him leave silently, but unease and suspicion accumulated. The next morning, as I was preparing breakfast, David sat at the dining table and I asked, "Good morning, David. What time will you be home today?" David was silent for a while, then answered with an unfocused look.
"Yeah, I might be late today. There's an important project."
I replied, "That sounds tough. But take care of yourself." But that night, David didn't come home. It was late at night, and there was no word from him, so I sent several messages to his phone, but there was no reply. The next morning, David finally came home.
"Where were you last night?" "I even sent messages."
"Busy with the project, I stayed at the office, sorry."
"Okay. But you should at least call, it's worrying."
"My bad."
"It seems you've been very busy lately. If there's a problem, let me know if I can help."
David chuckled and said, "No problems, just a bit busy. Sorry to worry you." Despite smiling, I felt something was off with David's tired look and his unusual replies. As I was deeply worried about the drastic change in his behavior, I chose to silently observe, preserving our family's peace. However, as David's outings and business trips increased, and he returned home later, we talked less. I feared something might be happening. My suspicion only grew. One day, while David was taking a shower, I noticed his phone. Normally, I wouldn't do this, but driven by a need to confirm, I picked it up. The unlocked screen showed a message from an unknown woman named Erica. "How was today? I want to see you again." My hands trembled, and my heart ached. But I chose not to confront him immediately, waiting for more solid evidence. I needed something more concrete before speaking out. I continued to quietly observe David's actions. While feeling that our family's peace was starting to crumble, I still couldn't find the right way to respond. Struggling internally, I earnestly hoped to resolve this situation. One evening, Tim and Anna, now adults and independent, came home for a family event. As we gathered for dinner, Tim voiced his concern.
"Dad's been saying he's busy, but is it really just work?"
Anna agreed, "It feels like he's distancing from home." I could only agree with my children, "I've been worried too." But I kept quiet so you wouldn't worry. That night, although it had been a while since the family dined together, the conversation centered around David, casting a shadow over everyone's faces.
"Mom, if there's a problem, we want to know. We're a family,"
Tim said earnestly.
"That's right. If Dad's facing something, maybe we can help solve it together."
"Thank you. We can't just leave things as they are. I'll have a proper talk with your father," I promised. Even though our children were grown up and independent, the bond of family was still strong, and I was touched that they were seriously confronting their father's changes. That day too, I waited for David's late return. The clock had already struck midnight, and the house was eerily quiet. Eventually, I heard the sound of the front door unlocking, and David quietly entered the house. "I'm home."
"Welcome back, David. You're late again today."
"Yeah, I've been really busy lately. There are work-related social events too."
"I see. But try to make some time to relax every now and then."
I said this as I took David's coat. By chance, a folded piece of paper fell from the pocket onto the floor. Picking it up, I unintentionally unfolded it. The note was written in a woman's handwriting. "I had a great time today. I want to see you again. I love you, Erica." The sound of David heading to the bathroom could be heard. It was clear what this note meant. Anger and betrayal swirled within me, but I decided to stay calm and think carefully about how to handle this evidence. I chose to store this piece of paper somewhere and plan my next steps. I decided to keep it quiet as evidence without saying anything. I didn't mention anything to David yet and chose to observe his actions further. The next morning, I prepared breakfast as usual and sat facing my husband. David seemed unchanged, reading the newspaper, but my heart was heavy with every word of the message I saw last night.
David, what are your plans for today?
Yeah, the usual. Anything happen?
No, nothing.
From this moment, I could no longer trust my husband, and quietly began to plan my next move. It was usually a quiet Saturday morning. As I was making coffee in the kitchen, David suddenly appeared in the living room with a serious expression.
David, what's wrong? You look so serious.
After a moment of silence, David finally spoke. Molly, please sit down. Feeling my heart race, I sat down on the sofa.
The truth is, I'm fed up with our mundane life. What do you mean? There's someone I want to build a future with, someone I've been thinking about starting a new life with. Someone you've been thinking about starting a new life with? David, do you mean?
It's Erica, a woman I met through work. We've been naturally drawn to each other while working on projects together. We really click.
Erica, the young employee from the trading company you mentioned before?
Yes, that's Erica.
She's very bright and energetic, always coming up with new ideas. We want to start a new business together. To do that, living together is the best option. After 25 years together, raising children, and thinking we'd be together in the future, why? Unfortunately, Molly, I can't stay with you any longer. I want to start anew with Erica. That's why I want to cut ties with you. Let's get a divorce.
Filled with shock and sadness, I was speechless for a few minutes.
Do you think you can be happy after throwing away everything about us, about our children?
I'm serious.
I want to make her happy. That's why, sign the divorce papers under these terms.
David placed a piece of paper on the table. I took the document he handed me, and quietly began to read through it amid my anxiety and tension. The document listed the divorce terms David proposed, which were disadvantageous to me. David intended to keep most of our assets for his new life with Erica, providing me only a minimal monthly maintenance. It also stated that our shared home was to be sold. My options were limited, and all I could receive were slight assurances for my past contributions and dedication.
David, what is this? We need the funds for our future with Erica.
You'll have to manage with this.
How am I supposed to manage with this amount? Is 25 years of marriage only worth this much to you?
Yeah, that's about right.
So you're telling me, who has been a homemaker all this time, to find work and become independent?
Yeah, well, that's about the size of it.
You were the one who said I should become a homemaker when our children were born to support the family.
You've done well up until now.
And you're selling the house too?
Yeah, the proceedings are already complete, so please move out soon.
What? What are you talking about? This is too sudden. What about our children?
They are already adults and independent, so they don't need us, right?
I can't accept these terms.
Even if you say that. Just accept it, I've already decided. Anyway, I'm leaving now. Please file the divorce papers. See ya.
David, wait a minute.
This can't be allowed. Anger welled up inside me, and soon it turned into tears. I thought we were finally going to spend time as a couple now that the children were independent. The next day, I took a deep breath in the home office and picked up the phone. I dialed the lawyer's number and pressed the call button with trepidation. Hello. This is Molly. I need some advice. On the other end of the line, the lawyer's calm voice came through.
Yes. What can I do for you?
My husband has another woman. I'm considering divorce, but he's forcing very unfavorable terms on me.
Let's first get a clear understanding of the facts. Evidence will be crucial here.
25 years gone just like that. A few days later, I visited the lawyer's office and provided detailed information about David and Erica's affair.
These are very strong pieces of evidence. Based on these facts that David was hiding, let's negotiate the unfair divorce terms.
Thank you. I'm ready to fight this battle. For my children and for myself. A few days later, I received another call from the lawyer and went to the office. The lawyer, holding a document, said, "Molly, we've discovered new information. It turns out that David and Erica already have a child together."
What? They already have a child?
Yes, from birth certificates and their joint mortgage, we've confirmed this fact. This information will be a significant advantage in the divorce proceedings.
They deceived us and even had a child.
It was an unforgivable fact. Will this be a big blow to David? Of course. This important information that David was hiding will be grounds for new terms. I packed my belongings and left the house I had lived in for so long. Then I decided to talk to the children, Tim and Anna.
Mom, what happened? Why are you here? What about the house? I'm sorry for calling you both out like this. Your father and I are getting a divorce. He has another woman. What? What do you mean? Tell us everything. Mom, is that true? Why would Dad do such a thing?
And also, it turns out he has a secret child.
That's too much. It's unforgivable that he's done this while you're still here.
What happened to the house? Dad sold it without telling me. He said he's using the money for a new business with that woman.
And he kicked you out for that. Unbelievable.
Is there anything we can do right now?
We're here for you, Mom.
Thank you. Just hearing you say that is enough for me. Actually, I'm consulting with a lawyer and preparing to fight this legally. Mom, if there's anything we can help with, just let us know. Gathering evidence or anything else that might be supportive. I was filled with gratitude, tears nearly spilling over. Thank you truly. Having you both by my side is reassuring. That night, we discussed future plans as a family. Anna decided to use her research skills to handle online information gathering. Tim decided to focus on organizing conversations he had with David. I headed to the kitchen and started preparing dinner. I'm so fortunate to have such a united family. Tim and Anna exchanged smiles. Later, the family gathered to review the evidence they had collected. Anna pointed to the laptop screen and said, "Look at this, Mom. These are photos Erica posted on social media. Pictures of the new house and her child, and she's really showcasing a happy family life." Erica, through her social media, was portraying a glamorous life as an influencer, presenting herself as a wealthy mom struggling with parenting, frequently posting photos of expensive interiors, her new house, and her happy family life. These posts were receiving lots of praise from her followers.
It's unbelievable. Her nerve is intolerable.
Yeah, Dad's partner is so young. Tim continued. And this is the evidence of the house being sold. Here's a copy of the contract. Both Dad's and Erica's names are on it. There's also information about a mortgage application for the new house. Thank you, both of you. Let's give all this to the lawyer. But I've got an idea. Just leave it to me. What is it? Well, never mind about that. I didn't understand what Anna was talking about. We already have all the evidence we need. Those two will not be forgiven. One day, Molly unexpectedly encountered Erica at a cafe. Erica was chatting happily with a friend in a corner of the cafe, confidently holding her secret child. I approached Erica calmly and politely. "Erica, may I have a word with you?" "What do you want?" "Oh, David's ex-wife?" "Yes, I am David's ex-wife." "It's good to see you happy, Erica. But don't assume this happiness will last forever. He has betrayed a family once. He might do it again." "What are you talking about? You're an old woman, and I'm still young. David wouldn't let me go. Do you know that the child you're holding was used to leverage against me in our divorce terms? David hid the existence of this child from me and presented very unfavorable terms." "What? What are you talking about, old lady? David was just fed up with his married life with you. Our relationship has nothing to do with it."
No, it does matter. You should understand how your presence and that child influenced the terms of my divorce. So what? We're in love. Whatever a person from the past like you says, it doesn't matter to us. If there's love, that's fine, but don't forget what David has done in the past. There was love between us too, but ultimately, I was betrayed. And not just me, you and that child might be treated the same way in the future. You're just sore because you lost. Whatever you try against us will be in vain. Remember this, though. You won't find happiness. With that, I left the cafe. I hate that old woman. I heard Erica's voice, but I didn't care. Those two will surely suffer from now on. We sat at the negotiation table with our lawyer in a tense atmosphere. The air was thick with tension. David stepped forward confidently and started speaking arrogantly. As you can see, I am moving forward with building a new family. Molly, I will provide you with the bare minimum for living expenses. Isn't that enough? My new family needs more money. David, I supported our family for 25 years and stood by your side. You watched the children grow up. And now you want to settle all that just with some money. Do you think that's fair? Tim stepped forward and confronted David. Dad, do you really think this is okay? Betraying your family just so you can be happy? Anna also joined forcefully. Dad, are you really okay with destroying everything you've built so far and just pretending it's fine? We can't just overlook what you're doing. David, unable to hide his irritation, retorted, I'm just pursuing my own happiness. What's wrong with that? The problem is, you're pursuing your happiness at the expense of ours, and in the process, you've hurt and used us. We stand with Mom. Everyone should know how wrong you are. Here's all the evidence. Look how selfishly you've planned everything. If this goes public, you'll lose your social standing and everything. Try it then. I haven't done anything wrong. It's my life, my choice. I took a deep breath and responded calmly. David, no matter what you say, the facts won't change. The evidence we have is enough to expose your actions to the public. David was momentarily shaken but quickly recovered and retorted arrogantly. Don't be ridiculous. I've always carved my own path. You think you can stop me now? The discussion was getting nowhere. From now on, we'll communicate through the lawyer present here, so we won't meet again. Lawyer, please take care of the rest. Yes, I will handle the rest, so please leave it to me. Forget it. David left after that. What a selfish person. To think I spent 25 years with someone like that is regrettable. The next day, Anna went on the offensive. She decided to leave a comment on Erica's latest post. Filled with deep anger and disappointment, she wrote, Erica, your posts always depict a perfect family life. But don't forget the truth about my father, the owner of a small company, who left my mother after 25 years to live with you. He forced my mother into a divorce under unfavorable conditions. Moreover, he hid the fact that he already had a child with you. He sold the house we had lived in for years without telling us and is using the money to build a new one with you. This comment was quickly spread by other users and sparked a significant discussion. Many followers reacted to the post, and the debate about Erica and David's actions intensified. The media also jumped on the story, exposing David's personal life and his treatment of his family. That was the good thing Anna was talking about. After Anna's post, Erica's social media unexpectedly blew up with critical comments pouring in. Afterward, our lawyer informed us that after lengthy discussions with David's representative, a final agreement was reached. Furthermore, the division of assets was adjusted to reflect the years Molly contributed to the household, ensuring she received a fair share of the communal property, specifically more than half of the proceeds from the sale of the house and a portion of David's investment assets. I'm truly grateful to the lawyer who worked with us empathetically. When I told Tim and Anna about it, they seemed relieved, saying, "That's great. We can move forward now. And Mom, I'm excited about your new start. It looks like I'm finally ready to move on." However, after Anna's post,
Erica's social media continued to be flooded with critical comments. The usual mix of praise and support turned into anger and condemnation, making her a target of criticism. Erica was staring at her phone screen in the living room. With every scroll, new critical comments appeared.
Look, they call me a hypocrite, a homewrecker. How can they deny our happiness like this? I haven't done anything wrong. This is all Anna's fault.
Erica still believed she was blameless. Anna ruined our life, David vented angrily on the phone to a friend. Afterward, the new business project David and Erica had planned was jeopardized by the scandal. Lacking credibility, sponsors began to withdraw one after another. Erica had quit her previous job and committed everything to this new project. But now she faced the harsh reality that her decision had backfired.
What are we going to do?
We have to figure something out. But the future looks bleak. We've lost sponsors and credibility, and it seems we might have to look for new jobs.
My happy married life is falling apart.
Eventually, David and Erica's new business project lost support due to the scandal and ultimately went bankrupt due to a lack of funds. The company and office were closed, the once bustling activity now gone. While clearing out the bankrupt office, David sighed. It's all over. There's nothing we can do now. What are we going to do? We've lost our jobs, and there's nowhere to go. I don't know. There's nowhere for us to turn. Despite attempts to reach out to several companies, the scandal led to them being turned away. Yet Erica remained dependent on social media. Why has this happened? Erica muttered while updating her social media profile. The image on the screen showed a past version of Erica smiling happily, but in reality, she looked gaunt with dark circles under her eyes.
Look, another new comment. There are still people who support me.
What good does that do? Reality won't change. David coldly replied. Over time, a clear rift developed between them. Unable to accept reality, Erica continued to escape into the world of social media. At least on social media, someone needs me. One night, deep in thought, David said, Erica, this can't go on. The happy world you've created on social media isn't reality. We're no longer in a position of wealth. We have to find a way to survive. Startled, Erica replied, but we still love each other, don't we? What's impossible? No, I don't feel anything anymore. I've decided to escape this fake life with you. I can't pay the mortgage anymore, so I've decided to sell the house. Please leave soon. That night, David packed a small bag, left the completed divorce papers, and left. Ultimately, David and Erica's marriage ended in less than 6 months. Erica, unable to sustain herself, returned to her parents' home. However, living a do-nothing life at her parents' house, Erica was eventually kicked out, and her parents took over raising her child. Erica is now working at a store. Meanwhile, David started working at a local factory during the day, but his life, far from his previous wealth, is now spent in a rundown house. As for me, I decided to start working again after the divorce. Having supported the family as a homemaker for many years, cooking was one of my skills. Cooking has always been a way to express love. Tim and Anna often come over to eat.
Mom, your cooking is really delicious. Why don't you post your dishes on social media?
Could I really do that?
Sure. I'll help you.
So, using my expertise, I decided to discover a new side of myself through cooking. Cooking has always been for the family, but now, I hope to please more people as I experimented with new recipes in the kitchen. I decided to take pictures of the finished dishes with my phone and upload them to social media. It was a photo of the pasta I specialize in. With a caption that read, "Today's lunch is homemade pasta." Simple, but I'm confident in the taste. I uploaded the photo along with a description of myself as a 53-year-old single, skilled housewife. The post quickly garnered reactions from followers, with comments like, "It looks delicious. Can you share the recipe?" pouring in. Gradually, my follower count increased, and I started a cooking blog. On the blog, I detailed the recipes of the dishes I made daily and the thoughts I put into them. I also humorously shared my experiences of being divorced at 53. The theme of my blog resonated with many, not just for the aesthetic appeal of the dishes but also for the heartfelt effort put into them. One day, I received a proposal to start a cooking class. The desire to learn directly from you, Molly, inspired this, was the feedback that sparked the idea. For the first class, I rented a local community center and decided to teach a menu centered on healthy cuisine. On the day of the cooking class, I greeted the participants with a nervous yet hopeful expression. Hello everyone. Let's enjoy cooking together today. We'll start with how to make broth. A good broth ensures any dish tastes authentic, I explained while demonstrating how to make broth. By the end of the class, participants were amazed, exclaiming, "I can't believe it's so easy to make delicious food." I also felt joy in discovering this new aspect of myself. I felt my love for cooking genuinely reaching the participants. That night, I posted about the day's class on social media, writing, "Today's cooking class was supported by many, and I am full of gratitude. I hope to continue delivering joy through delicious food." Just as I thought. Your cooking and your kind personality are truly special. I can't believe I'm capable of this. Every day feels so fulfilling. Thank you. I'm having so much fun right now. This new challenge holds significant meaning for me, and the coming days will prove just how much. Hannah, I gathered our family today for you. As my wife, don't embarrass me with your cooking. I'm expecting top-notch hospitality. Roy, thank you. But you know, I just gave birth to twins and was discharged from the hospital. A little consideration would have been nice. What? Talking back to me? It doesn't matter that you just gave birth. Besides, having children is a basic duty of a wife. Don't use postpartum as an excuse. Just cook quietly. 1 week after being discharged from the hospital having given birth to twins. As a celebration of the birth, Roy gathered 15 family members at his parents' home. I should be happy that he did all this for me, but it seems he intends to exploit me postpartum. I was completely fed up with my husband's unbelievable behavior. At that moment, I felt like throwing my phone at him, but I held back because it would ruin everything. Then I calmly told him, "I'll get everything ready now. But I'll need your parents to help." Getting help from my parents? Impossible, they're working overseas. Indeed, as my husband said, his parents were overseas and couldn't attend today's family gathering. He looked down on me with disdain. But he doesn't know anything. I already knew everything and had been preparing to get back at him. After a brief laugh to myself, I stepped outside and returned to my in-laws' home within 5 minutes. To his surprise, Roy asked, "Hannah, who are these people? I've never seen them before. Why are you bringing strangers to a family gathering?" Indeed, it was no surprise he was shocked. These two were certainly not family. But they were very much related to him. Just to introduce, this is Ben and his wife Claire. They're helping with today's preparations. You must be Roy. We've been looking forward to meeting you today. We've received quite a bit of help from Hannah. We know a lot about you, Roy. Looking forward to meeting me? Yet, both of you seem rather stern. Ben and Claire, though outwardly polite, looked at my husband with icy stares. Perplexed, Roy whispered to me, "Come here for a sec, Hannah." He pulled me aside to a secluded spot. With a puzzled look, he pressed, "What are you doing? It's outrageous to call strangers without my permission. How are you going to explain this to the family? There's no time left. Send them away and start preparing the meal right now." As usual, he tried to intimidate me with his threatening tone and demeanor. But today, I wasn't going to let things go his way. I looked him straight in the eye, filled with conviction. No need to panic. Everything is ready. Actually, I'm planning to sue you, with your mistress's parents here.
What? The parents of my mistress? You mean them?
Roy, you said they were strangers, outsiders. But that's only because you didn't know. Unfortunately for you, I know everything. I continued to speak calmly, just stating the facts. Roy was stunned and puzzled, then his expression turned demonic.
What do you mean by the parents of my mistress? I've never cheated. And what's with your attitude today? Are you disrespecting me?
As his anger surged, he raised his voice and clenched his fist threateningly. So loud, even the family might hear. It was clear Roy wasn't calm.
What's going on, Roy? I heard some angry voices. Is there a problem? Oh, no. Just a little spat with the wife. She's a bit on edge postpartum,
he replied, pasting on a smile and subtly gesturing for me to leave. What a pathetic man, to think I obeyed him all this time. Ignoring his command, I headed back to the living room where the family was. After taking a deep breath, I began my counterattack. Here it goes. Just Roy, you'll regret this. Everyone. Thank you for gathering here today. I have an announcement. I am divorcing Roy. The previously warm celebratory atmosphere froze instantly. What? Confused voices filled the in-laws' house. Still, I continued with a smile. You all have been deceived by Roy. He's not the temperate, serious, hardworking, filial son you think he is. He's a cowardly man who bullies his wife while hiding his true nature. His good outward appearance is top-notch, so it's no wonder you haven't noticed. I only found out a year ago myself. Confusion and whispers spread, but standing up was Roy's uncle.
What's going on, Hannah? Divorcing just after giving birth. And it's hard to believe Roy would deceive us. He even said he was cooking for you at today's family gathering. I'm sorry to shock you, but I'm just stating the facts. As soon as my pregnancy was discovered, Roy started showing his true colors. Despite being pregnant, he made me work like a slave. Even today, he tried to make me cook. He's always lying. Glancing at my husband, he was expressionless. It seemed he was trying to hide his true nature from the family, but I clearly knew what he was thinking. Don't say anything more than necessary, you know what will happen later, he seemed to convey through his anger, yet expressionless face. But I continued regardless. Roy has repeatedly drilled into me that it's only natural for a wife to get pregnant and give birth. I work and provide for you, he'd say, using these words as a free pass to treat me without care. This side of him was never shown during our dating or early marriage. His parents and our relatives looked incredulous, but they know well that I am not one to joke. Thus, confusion spread. Then Roy moved. He stood beside me, took a deep breath, and plastered on his practiced smile. It seems there's a bit of a misunderstanding. I'm human and not perfect. Perhaps I have been harsh in my words to my wife. However, I have cared for her as much, if not more. Unfortunately, it seems only the unpleasant incidents have stuck with her. Moreover, what my wife is saying has no basis. She might be unstable postpartum. I regret not being able to support her better as a husband.
As Roy flashed a somewhat sad smile, a wave of sympathy appeared on the relatives' faces. I thought again how good he was at maintaining appearances, but that would only work until today. As expected of the next CEO candidate. Mastering people's hearts seems to be your forte, right? It shows why you're so valued at your father's company.
Hannah, I understand you're upset postpartum, but it's not right to confuse everyone like this. We'll talk about this more calmly in another room later.
Roy gently took my hand, subtly trying to end the conversation. That's when I turned my gaze to a corner of the room, signaling the next move. The couple stood up. There's no need for that. Everyone, please look here.
What? You're still here? And what's with those photos?
They showed a stack of photos to the relatives. While the relatives were surprised by the presence of these outsiders, they couldn't help but look at the photos thrust before them. Immediately, a scream-like gasp of horror echoed through the in-laws' house.
Hey, what is this? Roy, explain this so I understand. What happened all of a sudden? Show me the photos too.
Snatching the photos from his uncle, Roy was speechless. There, the absolute last thing he wanted known was depicted. As you can see, these photos capture Roy's infidelity. I had been aware of his affairs before my hospitalization and gathered evidence. However, being pregnant, there was a limit to what I could investigate alone. That's when I reached out to his mistress's parents for help. I am Ben, this is my wife Claire. We regret disturbing you at such a gathering. However, we needed to clear our daughter's name and agreed to help Hannah. Our daughter, Rachel, worked at Roy's company. She finally got a job there after much effort, attending daily with enthusiasm. But one day, she returned to us broken, played by this man. Claire choked up with emotion. And Ben supported her shoulder, glaring at my husband.
Rachel once happily told us she had met a wonderful person. She was a child we were blessed with when my wife was 40. You can imagine how delighted we were. But to Roy, Rachel was just a fling. He deceitfully presented himself as single, and seduced her, much younger than him. When Rachel realized she was just being played by a married man, she fell into a deep depression. We will never forgive Roy.
Silence fell. The relatives looked at the photos again and then silently turned their gazes to my husband. No trace of earlier trust could be sensed.
No, wait. Are you going to believe what some old man and woman say? Such photos can be fabricated. It's a scam for alimony. We were also surprised by their presence, but would they really commit fraud at a family gathering? I can't believe they are lying, but if you really didn't do anything, then calm down. And you, calling them old man and old woman. Well, I kind of got carried away.
It was clear from my husband's disarray that his true nature had slipped out. It was evidence that he was unsettled. Our counterattack was definitely having an effect. The extent of his panic confirmed it. Soon after, someone slapped my flustered husband. Everyone gasped in unison upon seeing the person's face. Especially my husband, who opened his mouth wide enough to dislocate his jaw.
Hey Roy, long time no see.
Hello everyone, it's been a while.
Dad, Mom? Why are you here? You're supposed to be overseas.
There was an important matter. We came back urgently.
Well, you came back at a good time. Help me. Hannah has started saying strange things. Everyone is being swayed by Hannah, trying to make me out to be the bad guy. I haven't done anything wrong. Hannah must have gone crazy.
The in-laws just looked at my husband expressionlessly, without nodding along. My husband continued talking.
You know, they often talk about postpartum depression. Maybe you should go to the hospital once. Have the specialists take a look and let you rest. Then you'll surely start listening to me like before.
My husband rattled on, then steadied his breath. The in-laws remained unresponsive, but my husband took their silence as affirmation.
Looks like Dad and Mom understand.
That's a relief for me. I'm really thirsty now. Hey, Hannah. Water. His mother silently placed a water bottle in the hand he extended towards me. He was a bit surprised, but didn't say anything and started drinking the water. That's when my father-in-law dropped the bomb.
Roy, you're going to have to quit the company. You're fired.
My husband spit out his water like in a comic book. A relative sitting nearby frowned as he wiped his clothes.
What, Dad? What are you starting with now? Jokes don't suit you at your age. Decide for yourself if it's a joke after looking at this. Is this a phone? In call mode? And on speaker?
Correct.
I'm the one on the call. I had your parents listen in from the start with everything on speaker. What? Why would you do that? I contacted your parents as soon as I realized your true nature. They're the first people I should consult. Plus, I've recorded all the abuses you've thrown at me during the pregnancy on my phone. I let them hear all of it. By the way, today's abuses are also being recorded.
Saying this, I played the audio files. The phone emitted the sounds of my and my husband's conversation.
Roy. Today, I've gathered our family for you. As my wife, don't embarrass me with your cooking. I'm expecting top-notch hospitality. Thank you, Roy. But you know, I just gave birth to twins and was discharged from the hospital. A little consideration would have been nice.
What? Talking back?
It doesn't matter that you just gave birth. Besides, having children is a basic duty of a wife. Don't use postpartum as an excuse. Just cook quietly.
At the moment my husband insulted me today, I felt like throwing my phone at him, but I held back because it would ruin everything. Yes, the reason I endured was because I was recording the abuses. I had confirmed the recording was active when I stepped out to call them from the in-laws' house.
You were recording. Hannah, what have you been doing sneaking around? I don't want to be lectured about sneaking around by Roy, who bullies his wife and cheats. Plus, if I didn't do this, Roy would try to weasel his way out of it. As expected, he tried to deny everything.
Roy, we know everything. We came back secretly today.
We listened to your statements over the speaker and reconfirmed your rotten nature. We weren't doubting Hannah, but as parents, we wanted to believe in Roy. And this is the result.
Now, it's our turn to question you.
Why did you cheat?
Hannah was supporting you admirably. My husband's momentum drained away at the in-laws' words. Since my husband works at his father-in-law's company, he sees his father-in-law as an authoritative figure. He must have realized that his father-in-law would not accept any half-hearted excuses. He hesitantly began to speak.
I'm married just to appease you. Honestly, I never really thought about getting married, but I knew you were worried about my future. I thought marrying someone unassuming like Hannah would put you at ease.
Upon hearing this, the in-laws and other relatives all frowned and looked at him coldly. Sensing danger, he quickly begged.
Please, don't fire me. I am a valuable asset to the company, aren't I? If I'm fired, won't it cause chaos? I'll change, please reconsider.
Right after he pleaded, a loud thud resonated through the room. His father had slammed his fist down on a nearby table.
You bastard! After getting Hannah pregnant, you dared to toy with an innocent young girl under the guise of being single. How can you be so audacious? Your presence causes more chaos in the company. I cannot entrust the company to you.
I am truly disappointed in you.
You act on your desires without considering the feelings of others. I didn't raise someone who lives so selfishly, who wreaks havoc in others' lives. Do you understand? And to think you married just for appearances. How appalling. Don't think you can easily regain the lost trust. I am cutting ties with you. Do not show your face again. What? But I've worked so hard. Are you kidding?
He looked more despairing than I had ever seen him. I knew he had been striving hard at the company. It wasn't unreasonable for him to be shocked, as it all amounted to nothing. But he brought it upon himself. He acted like a victim, but it was entirely his own doing. As he looked down, I gave him a cold stare, and he immediately knelt before me.
Hannah, please convince your parents too. If I lose my job, you'll struggle as well, right? I'll truly change, help me. Aren't we still husband and wife? How convenient for you to play the husband card now. As I've already announced to everyone, I am divorcing you. No matter how much you apologize, I can never forgive you. They feel the same way.
As I glanced at them, they nodded slowly. He bit his lower lip, then slowly turned to face them.
I am deeply sorry for hurting your daughter. I will apologize as many times as necessary.
He repeatedly apologized, but they did not nod in agreement. No matter how much he apologized at this moment, we would not forgive him. He was still hiding a terrible truth. While apologizing, he was still trying to deceive us.
It's truly unfortunate, Roy.
You continue to act even now.
If you had been honest, perhaps the outcome might have been different. But as I've said repeatedly, we know everything.
There's no turning back now. As I smirked cunningly, He looked at me with a dumbfounded expression.
Acting. How can you tell? I am apologizing sincerely. On what basis do you say such things?
Embezzling company funds, right? And you hired thugs with that money to threaten Rachel, to keep her from exposing your true nature. You intended to silence her, right?
You're insane. I would never do such a thing. Without evidence, such wild accusations.
Without evidence? That's not possible. Your parents have been conducting an investigation and have gathered evidence. That's also why they came back. I've also spoken with Rachel herself. I even took the voice recorder she had. Should I play it here now? It clearly records you threatening her. He quickly changed color and fearfully looked at his in-laws. Their gazes were as cold as ice. Roy, stop your futile struggle. A clear conclusion will soon be reached. This alone is enough for summary dismissal. Meaning, either way, you have to leave the company. Adultery is a personal matter, but embezzlement and extortion change the narrative.
I had no idea it was all out.
Roy, you've always underestimated me. You thought I couldn't do anything, right? I might have struggled alone. But with everyone's help, we managed to get this far. And only I can protect the baby that has been born. I won't be manipulated anymore. I imparted my final words. Listen carefully, I'm saying this again. I am divorcing you, no matter how much you apologize. I will also claim child support. You'll be the one to pay. We will also claim damages from Roy. Rachel's lost time can't be returned, so at least show some sincerity with your compensation.
Wait, hold on. I don't have that kind of money. Someone, please help me.
Roy looked around, but all he got were cold stares. Gradually, one by one, the relatives started to leave the place. Of course, no one spoke to him. He lost everything in just one day. After that, my divorce from Roy was finalized. I managed to get almost the amount I hoped for child support, and I breathed a sigh of relief. They filed a lawsuit against Roy as they had declared, and the company finished its official investigation and sought compensation for embezzlement. Roy became mired in debt and sought help from me, his in-laws, and the other relatives. Of course, no one offered a helping hand. Having been fired, and with rumors of his embezzlement spreading throughout the industry, no company was willing to hire him. Eventually, out of financial desperation, Roy resorted to borrowing from payday lenders, and now he's living day to day just to pay off his debts. My in-laws apologized to me again, ensuring that Roy could do no harm to me, keeping a close watch on his way of life. They smiled and told me they were always on my side. I can't thank them enough. For now, I'm put off by the idea of marriage, but if I ever consider it again, I'd want a partnership like theirs. That's how I feel. A few years later, the twins have grown up and started kindergarten, which has greatly increased what they can do. Now they even help out with household chores and support me. I've completely cut ties with my ex-husband, but I still keep in touch with his parents. They introduced me to a company run by a friend of theirs. The president of this company, a single mother who raised her son alone, has created a work environment friendly to single mothers. They have been very accommodating about my situation, allowing flexible work arrangements. Rachel also works at this company. She has made a successful return to society and is now a popular figure in the office with her bright smile. Unsurprisingly, it was her parents who supported her. Seeing how they acted for their daughter, I have many aspects to learn from them as a parent. Rachel is eager to repay her parents. I, too, am striving every day to repay my in-laws' kindness. While there are still many challenges, seeing my children's smiles instantly soothes me. I truly cherish the time spent with my children and am glad I had them. Amidst all this, I sometimes recall something my ex-husband used to say. He said that having children is just a wife's duty. Watching my children grow, I realize again that nothing about it is ordinary. Pregnancy and childbirth are sacred and bring so much happiness. This ordeal has left deep scars on me. But it has also made me aware of something equally important. For my children, and for myself, I want to keep looking forward and live my life to the fullest.